Be sure to go to flipsidegaming.com and use promo code 6 for 10% off on orders over $10. It's a good deal and helps with the show. Today's video is also brought to you by the like button. Press it, not because I'm asking you to, but because Bolas is telling you to. What is up, Planeswalkers? Theurix6 back with some more Magic the Gathering. This content is bonus content, because it will be going up at midnight, my time. And this essentially is just me kind of talking about some of the cards that I'm most excited about seeing back from Amonkhet Remastered. I will be upset if these cards aren't added in, and there are 25 of them. I don't remember how exactly I did this. I did it somehow. We'll see. But essentially, I'm going to go through all of the cards as they are ordered here. I don't know how I've ordered them, but I've ordered them, and I'll talk a little bit about why I'm excited about these cards, and potentially, like, why some people might not be. So, the first one I have on here is possibly a very controversial one, and that's Approach of the Second Sun. Now, I'm excited about this card, generally speaking, because I do like the idea of this card, right? Having a card that is an alternate win condition that literally says, like, you win the game is cool. There are several issues with this, though. The main one being 3-mana Teferi. Why does 3-mana Teferi make this annoying? Because he makes it so that you can cast this at instant speed. And the fact that you can cast this at instant speed means that you can hold up. You don't have to dedicate your mana to casting this and then, you know, on the next turn, or casting this and you like be shields down, right? You can have Teferi, hold up your counter magic, hold up your removal spells. If they don't do anything that you care about, you cast Approach. You know, next turn, it's what, 7th from the top? Who cares? You know, you'll probably be able to find a way to get it back. There's also technically the issue of Fires of Invention, because it does a very similar thing. Although the fact that you have to, you know, I don't know. Fires of Invention is a little different for me, just because of the fact that the whole, my main issue is that with Teferi it allows you to hold your removal up, hold your counterspells up, whereas with Fires of Invention you don't actually get to do that, right? Like, you can play Approach of the Second Sun and you can do something else, right? Even if it's a board wipe or something, but you know, your opponent has the immediate ability to do something the heck else about it. With Teferi as well, it means that you're not going to be able to counter this, you know, you're not going to be able to counter your opponent's approach, but you know, with Fires of Invention that's not the case, right? You can still attempt to counter their approach. Or in some way inhibit their ability to use an approach or whatever. So I would like to see this card back because I think it is interesting. It's in my opinion, a super cool win con for white-based control decks, but that main issue, man, I think it's Teferi, and it might be too annoying, but we'll kind of have to see, because I do expect Approach to come back. Aven Mind Sensor. If they don't bring this card back, I'm going to be upset. Field of the Dead. So some people might not realize. So Amonkhet Remastered is Wizards of the Coast going to, you know, put back some Amonkhet cards. Not all of them. I'm hoping, and most people are hoping, that it's just like some of the draft chaff, as it were, that they're not going to be bringing back. I would prefer if they just brought back Amonkhet, both blocks or both sets, and just had us buy them again, like, whatever. I don't care, because I don't want them deciding what is and is not draft chat, right? Like, there are commons and uncommons from Amonkhet that I really want to see. I don't think any of them are in here, unfortunately. Well, that's not true. I know a couple of uncommons are, but I don't like the idea that I don't get to, like, play with all of the cards that I enjoyed from Amonkhet. Amonkhet Remastered is only going to affect Historic. It's not going to affect Standard, so. That said, Field of the Dead is still for some reason legal in Historic, and I do still think Field of the Dead is too strong. But Aven Mind Sensor, now that we have Ghost Quarter, would allow me to make Death and Taxes, like, actually strong. Being able to, and obviously I'm sounding like a really bad person now, but being able to actually, like, strip mine someone sounds really damn good to me. Because I have to have this card on the battlefield and have Ghost Quarter, or Field of the Dead, I guess. Oh, I just realized Field of the Dead, like, becomes even better, because then you get to search for a replacement card, but they don't. But the thing, right, is that you can stop so many annoying things by just flashing an Aven Mind Sensor. You know, it stops Golos, it stops Scape Shift, it stops them cracking Fable Passage. I shouldn't even say it stops, right? Because it doesn't. It doesn't stop them. It allows them to search just the top 4. I want to see this card back. I think this, of all of the cards that I'm going to talk about today, is probably the second highest card where I will be upset if they don't bring it back. Obviously, there's one other card that I care about a little bit more, but if they don't bring this card back, I'm going to be real upset. New perspectives. We got a lot of cycling cards from Ikoria, and one of the things that I'm super interested in seeing is how those cycling cards from Ikoria match onto the cycling cards from Amonkhet, and New Perspectives is one of those cycling cards. So, you know, it's a 6-mana enchantment, so it costs a lot, but you immediately draw 3 when it enters, and as long as you have 7 or more cards in hand, you may pay 0 rather than pay cycling costs. I don't know how broken that is. But for what it's worth, you can play this with Unexpected Cyclone, I think is what it's called, the 5-mana enchantment. So, you know, turn 5 that, turn 6 this. And then you can just start getting some crazy spells potentially. Obviously, most of them are going to have cycling because you're building the deck around cycling. But there's that you can do nonsense with. I'm certain there's other things. You know, there's cycling cards in Ikoria that do things when you cycle. So I'm just, in general, I'm super excited about that because at the end of the day, this is a 6-mana enchantment, right? It's a 6-mana enchantment that's real strong. Do not get me wrong at all. This is really strong once it enters the battlefield, if it enters the battlefield, and if you're allowed to do this. You know, for example, we have Narset. Narset just, like, stops this card. So, who knows? Super cool. I'm super interested in seeing that. Drakehaven is another cycling tool. 3-mana enchantment this time. This one is for a bit more of like a kind of tempo-y cycle deck where you cycle or discard, which is cool. You may pay 1 if you do. Create a 2/2 Drake. Cool. You get to essentially tack on to all of your cycling costs. Pay 1, add a 2/2 Drake with flying. That's not bad, especially for all of the decent 1-mana cyclers from Ikoria. This, you know, 2-mana, discard a card, draw a card, get a 2/2 with flying. That's not awful. It's just support that I'm super interested to see how it meshes with these new mechanics. Of course, you know that my black choices are going to be they're going to be zombie related. Liliana Death's Majesty, 5-mana 5/5. You make a zombie and you put the top 2 into your graveyard. You return a creature from your graveyard. Any creature, it becomes a zombie, and then you destroy all non-zombie creatures. I absolutely love this card. I had an absolute blast playing with this back in the day of Arena. And I'm just really looking forward to having it back. I don't even, like, the issue, of course, is I'm not even sure she'd be playable in Historic, but I'd be playing zombies. I mean, you have this, there's a couple of ways that I see playing zombies in Historic once Amonkhet comes back. There's the actual, like, creature version, and then there's more of, like, a creature token version. And I think this would be a little bit better in the creature token version. You'd still have the Lords, and that's what you'd use the -3 for. But I think in general, you would want to use Liliana Death's Majesty alongside 4-mana Liliana, 6-mana Liliana even, potentially Liliana's Mastery, which is the 5-mana card. We'd be... Was that an Amonkhet card? I don't remember. I cannot recall. I don't remember. There's one whatever, Liliana. There's one card that's like black XX that apparently is not a Liliana card. No, I think it was an Innistrad block. But you know, you play things like this, things that make creature tokens. Maybe you run the, gosh, what is that darn thing called? Some amass cards. And I think, you know, then it's a little bit more control-y. You play a lot of black removal spells as well. And you just win over like attrition, whereas the creature version would be a lot more aggressive. Now, obviously, as I said, the Lord would be put in both, but Lord of the Accursed is so awesome, especially in the aggressive creature version, because one, he's a 3-mana 2/3 Lord instead of being a 2/2 Lord. Obviously buffs your zombies, but he can tap to give all zombies menace until end of turn. If you find a way to give him vigilance, because he doesn't say all other, he gets menace. So you could theoretically if he has vigilance, attack with your team before blocks are declared. Well, technically it's after attackers are declared. Semantics, but still. You tap it, give all your zombies menace, bada bing, bada boom. You're looking pretty good. It's another. I mean, it's a lord. It's a zombie lord, and I like zombies. And you play the 1 mana zombie, crypt breaker, crypt gas. I don't remember. You have potentially you even go like super graveyard oriented with the Stitcher Supplier. You have things maybe like, gosh, what is that card's name? The black 3/2 that like exiles a card from your graveyard, a creature card from your graveyard to get a 2/2 zombie. I don't remember all their damn names, okay? But, so, you know, you can go super wide with your zombies, get some big boys in. It's cool. I'm super excited for zombies to be back. You can kind of see kind of a trend here. Like Approach the Second Sun is a control card. Aven Mind Center is a control card for a specific type of control deck, Death and Taxes. Then we have Cycling, and then we have Zombies. And then we're back, then we're back to control. Sweltering Suns. Ooh, baby. Sweltering Suns would be really interesting for control decks. Now, obviously, we right now have Deafening Clarion. Right, Deafening Clarion allows certain Jeskai decks to also potentially give their creatures lifelink. So in situations where you're playing, you know, Kenrith, you know, Jeskai Fires, for example, I would suspect that deck still would like to play at least some number of Clarions, because you're going to be able to give your creatures lifelink, and that might matter. Obviously, you might still want a couple of these, because Fire's Invention makes it really likely that you're going to be able to just have mana open. You can cycle with this, which is great. But this is really helpful for mono red control decks. And you might be saying, I thought you were going to say, like, Grixis decks or something. Technically, yes, I do think this helps Grixis decks a little. I think it helps cool mono red control decks like Chandra Control or something else that I don't know of. But, you know, it's a 3 damage, 3 mana burn spell that you can cycle for 3. And that helps those mono red decks, right? They have, at this point, they have Storm's Wrath. But, you know, what else do they have by themselves? Not a lot for a board wipe spell. So I really think that Sweltering Suns would be a boon to that. I will say that I don't actually know how good this would be in a Grixis deck, because of the fact that Grixis decks, at least mine, tend to favor black a lot because of Dragon God. Dragon God is 3 black pips. We're gonna heavily favor black. So I don't know how good this is in that style of deck, but it is another contender for that 3 mana kind of board wipe card. Glorious End, not a control deck, or not a control card. It's a funny card, right? 3 mana, instant speed, end the turn. At the beginning of your next end step, you lose the game. Now, Platinum Angel exists because of Historic Anthology 2. That's the main reason why I think this is a funny card, because anything that says you can't lose the game doesn't matter when you have Platinum Angel out. If your opponent were to remove, like, you know, they target Platinum Angel with some sort of kill spell, you have no other protection for it, Glorious End. You end the turn, exile all spells and abilities on the stack. At the beginning of your next end step, you would lose, but you don't. So, what? Obviously, they still have a chance to get rid of your Platinum Angel again by your next end step. But still, this gives you time. It's hilarious. I absolutely love this card, and that's not the only application. You know, it gives weird burn style decks an extra turn. It's just interesting. I think it is a pretty cool build around card. And I want to see more build around cards. Prowling Serpent, it's a cat snake. But what's really cool is that it's another in the line of like creature spells you control can't be countered. So you have Destiny Spinner, you have Prowling Serpent, which by itself can't be countered. You know, 3 mana, 4/3. It's nice. And then of course creature spells you control can't be countered. I don't think they have one necessarily for that on 4, but you do have access to Shifting Ceratops. And, you know, that's just like if counter magic is too high, you just bring these in and hit people. The thing is, it's also just a 4-power green creature, and Gruul, I think, is the top deck in Historic right now. So at this point, I would potentially be afraid, but in general, this is one of my preferred cards to see back, because I like making those decks where it's just like everything in the deck either has hexproof or can't be countered or something, and like the whole idea is to troll control decks, right? I play Grixis Control, but I also like to troll the control. Sandware Conversions. I just like this card, dude. It's an 8-mana card. Creatures with flying can't attack you, or planeswalkers you control, and then just at the beginning of your end step, you make a 5/5 worm. It's funny. Like, that's it. I just want to play with this card in, I guess this one's not as much for historic, generally speaking, but it's for historic Brawl, right? Like, I know it's an 8-mana card. It's technically not that great. I like it, though. It's funny. I don't think there's currently a way to give all creatures flying, at least in Arena, but it's just funny. It's just funny, and that's all that matters to me, is that it's fucking hilarious. Dusk and Dawn. So I think there might be one split card, and then a couple. Yeah, okay. I think I kind of just realized what I've done here. Dusk's Dawn is an interesting board wipe for the Death and Taxes decks, right? And that's kind of why I want it. So Death and Taxes does have a couple of creatures across the builds that have power 3 or greater, but the majority of the cards are going to be relatively small, especially in the mono white version. So this becomes a board wipe that you can really guilt-free play. You just get to blow up the board of bigger creatures like the Gruul decks. This will also give, because I'm pretty sure Gruul is really strong against the next best deck, which is the mono white deck, I believe, because they're playing a lot of weenies, right? The Gruul cards are really big, really fast, so it doesn't necessarily give the white life gain decks time to gain that life to make their few creatures get bigger. This really helps the white weenie decks, or even white blue skies potentially can see use out of this card. You know, a lot of their bases are 1s and 2s, and even when you buff that, only the 2 power creatures get buffed to 3. But in the graveyard, you know, they'll still be 2, so then you can return all creatures with power 2 or less from your graveyard to your hand, so you can refill as well. So I really like the idea of Dusk to Dawn. It would be a great addition to sideboard Death and Taxes decks, white weenie decks, any other white X aggro decks, you know, maybe vampires or something like that. Vampires, I don't know, I said it like that. Nahab the Worthy. Something that we got in... Where did we get all those damn Minotaurs? Theros, right, of course. Theros was a set. In Theros, we got a few more Minotaurs. I'm curious to see if there's sufficient Minotaur value possible in Historic. You know, Nahab not the strongest of cards, 3-mana 2/2 with first strike. But if you're heck bent, 1 or fewer cards, all Minotaurs you get are +2, so you know they become 4/2. And then whenever Nahab deals combat damage to a player, each player discards a card. So he helps you get heck bent. When you're heck bent, your first striking Minotaurs get a little better. So it's just cool. Also, he's legendary, so you can play a Minotaur tribal deck even in Brawl. It's cool. Then we get to Hour of Devastation, and the first one here is Crested Summoner. 1, horses. We've had a few more horses, I think, in Standard, printed into Standard. So Crested Summoner becomes a little bit better. But also, it's just... I know technically the white life gain deck is already pretty strong, but then each end step, if you gained life this turn, create a 5/5 white horse that happens to be indestructible while Sunmare is out. It's just another... It's another like life gain strategy that isn't super aggressive, right? And I really appreciate that. You can make a life gain deck that is, you know, more tilted towards the late game. So I really like this card. Solemnity. Players can't get counters. Counters can't be put on artifacts, creatures, enchantments, or lands. God, I can't remember. I put this on here because it combos with something. And I feel so ashamed now that I forgot what it comboed with. Yeah, I don't recall. It comes with something, and I'm very much ashamed of the fact that I don't remember. Let me know in the comments what it is, because the entire reason I put this in here is because it combos with something. But I don't edit my videos, so I'm just gonna move on, because I'm garbage. Supreme Will is a counterspell that I really, really liked playing with in my Grixis decks of yore. 3 mana for a soft counter. You know, this isn't a hard counter. They can pay 3 and keep their spell. But if you know that your opponent's going to be able to do that, you can also just look at the top 4 cards of your library and put one of them in your hand, right? And that is huge. Having that versatility on a counterspell is absolutely massive. Just being able to keep something up, like I've talked about this before in some of my other instant speed control decks. Typically, I play sorcery speed control decks like Grixis, but in some of the instant speed control decks I've put out there, I've talked about how important it is to have options if you're running counterspells, right? Having other things that you can do if your opponent doesn't actually give you something to counter, right? And usually those things are card draw, right? There's some way of drawing cards, and this by itself, right, is double duty. It's both. So I super value it highly. For Insanity, Mill is so close to being like an actually great strategy in Historic. This would help not only offensive mill, but also self mill, because you can enchant any player, and at the beginning of each of the end step of that enchanted player, they put the top X cards where X is the number that was already put there, right? So it just makes all of your milling better, right? You just get to double up. So I really like the idea of this coming back. I don't think mill would be necessarily too strong, because you have plenty of ways of countering it, at least in the sideboard, for yourself, in Gaia's Blessing. We're also getting... No, we're not getting Infinite Gyre. We're getting Ceaseless Hunger. Never mind. So we don't have a Ulamog that can deal with it. But you do still have cards like Loaming Shaman that allow you to just be like, hey, you're trying to self-mill yourself? Run it back, baby. But you know, I think it's an interesting card, and I like build around enchantments. Speaking of enchantments that are built around, we have Torment of Scarabs. I like this card. I have a historic Mardu enchantment deck. I would love to put this in that Mardu enchantment deck. I mean, it's a personal one, but I like to see it. And this is this one more than I think Supreme Will. This is a card that I think that they might choose not to bring back, and this is a card that I would be pretty upset if they chose not to bring back, because you know it is just a random uncommon. I played with this during Amonkhet block. I want to play with it again, and I even have a deck right now that I would find room for this in. So, with that said, we're gonna move on to Doomfall. This saw so much play back in the day, but I don't know if it would actually be played now. Talking about opponent exiles a creature he controls, so you know it's essentially sacrifice, except they exile it, which is great. Target opponent reveals his or her hand. You choose a non-land card from it, exile that card. It's versatility, right? And I talk a lot about the versatility. Obviously, you're paying a premium for this, but it is versatility. As I said, I played a ton with this, you know, back in the olden days. I don't know if I would actually play it in Historic, unfortunately, but it's a cool card. It harkens back to the old times. A Braid. This card's a good card. We don't need it as much without Kaladesh. I do still think that it would see play in sideboards, just from Amonkhet, for example. But the fact of the matter is, you know, it's instant speed, deal 3 damage to a creature, with the added benefit of destroying an artifact. If there are sufficient artifacts running around, this will be fine. And right now, I'm not seeing a ton of Platinum Angel. I saw a ton of Platinum Angel, like when it was first released and for a little bit after, but I haven't seen as much of it right now. But this deals with Platinum Angel, and it also helps against the early aggressive Gruul decks and mono white decks. So this is definitely something that I'd keep an eye out for, and that I hope would come back. Now, here's the real card. Hour of Devastation. This card is just so good. It is 5 mana, which isn't the best, you know, but this forces all creatures to lose indestructible until end of turn, which is great. It doesn't get rid of protection from red, but there aren't too many... It doesn't get rid of protection, but not too many things in the game right now have protection, so it doesn't matter. Hour of Devastation deals 5 damage to each creature and each non-Bolas Planeswalker. This hits Planeswalkers and creatures. and the indestructibility is bye-bye. I absolutely cannot wait till I have this card back. It does drive, so on 4, right? If I'm, I'm thinking about this in terms of my Grixis control deck, my Grixis Bolas deck, I should say. It essentially puts it so I don't need the 4 mana board wipes anymore. In general, generally speaking, they're just not efficient. We have Ritual of Soot, we have Shadow of the Sky, or sorry, not Shadow of the Sky. We have Storm's Wrath, and we have Extinction Event. Not Shadow of the Sky, goddammit. Ritual of Soot, it misses a lot of things on turn 4, right? There are so many 4 mana threats that come down on turn 4 that make it really, really difficult to justify playing that card. Obviously, against super aggressive decks, it's great, but in Gruul, for example, you have to deal with cards like Questing Beast, which are backbreaking, right? Those are the cards that you really want to kill. With Storm's Wrath, you do hit more things, do not get me wrong. You even hit Planeswalkers, but you do hit your own Planeswalkers. With Hour of Devastation, technically, we hit our own Planeswalkers, but if we're only playing Bolas Planeswalkers, it's not really an issue now, is it? Additionally, it is double red, which is a strike against it. This is double red, but it's a 5 mana card that's double red is different than a 4 mana card that's double red, if that makes sense. One needs like 16 cards, 16 sources. The other one, I think, only needs 14 sources. I could be wrong, but I think that's how it is. And then Extinction Event is the best one for me right now. That's obviously why I'm playing it. But it still has situations where you want one or the other. So what that does is, on 4 mana, it makes me lean back towards targeted removal. So like 8 to Extinction, Extinction Event. I hate everything. Or Vraska's Contempt even. But on 3, it makes the 3 slot a little bit more important for potential board wipe, because then I do really want to make sure I can shore up those early cards. Sweltering Suns might be it, although, as I said, double red is not great. So I might end up upping my Cryotachinariums, for example. And then, of course, Hour of Devastation. It just does all the things that you want it to do, except the fact that it doesn't kill certain Planeswalkers that immediately plus a 6, which I won't talk about. Pride Sovereign. Cats. We got more cats in Ikoria. Like, a cat deck would be a real thing, dude. Like, it'd be actually decent in Historic with Pride Sovereign. So I'm actually super... I prefer hounds. Or I prefer dogs, but in Magic they're hounds, even though there's also werewolves and foxes and a bunch of other things that should just be in dogs, because cats are treated better, but whatever. Oh, they get to be anything in the order, the Felidae, but fucking Candidae don't get that classification. It's just ass. Whatever. Pride Sovereign's great. It's just great. I can't talk enough about how much Pride Sovereign's just fucking awesome. Ramunap Excavator. It is essentially extra copies of how about here? Crucible World. Jeez. Crucible World currently is able to be played in any color deck, and it's not an issue. I suspect that Ramunap Excavator also would not be an issue, so I think it'd just be extra value for Get Rog Brawl decks, because you're going to have the ability to Get Rog Historic Brawl decks, because you'll have extra redundant copies, and in green versions of anything that gives a shit about Crucible Worlds, you have this. So, it's cool. The man, the myth, the legend. God Pharaoh Bolas. For what it's worth, not the biggest fan of this art. I love Raymond Swanland, don't get me wrong, but this is just it's a goblinified face, which isn't the best. But I mean, this one I actually don't like really either. Vincent Prost does great work, but I really don't like his nub in there. I don't remember. I think Jesper, I can't say his last name. I think he did like one of the best versions of Bolas. I don't remember where though. Regardless, 7 mana, 7 loyalty, +2. Target opponent exiles a card from the top of his or her library until he or she exiles a non-land card. Until end of turn, you may cast that card without paying its mana cost. +1. Each opponent exiles 2 cards from his or her hand, which is actually just their hand now. -4. 7 damage to target opponent. creature an opponent controls or planeswalker an opponent controls. Oh, yeah, so they did update this. So 7 damage to target opponent, creature, or planeswalker an opponent controls. Oof. Hell yeah, baby. -12 each, exile each non-land permanent your opponent controls. Bye. Oh, it's so good. I absolutely love this. I can't wait for this to come back. Oh, what am I doing? I am going to make a version of Grixis Control with any card from Amonkhet block back. Obviously, I don't know what's in Amonkhet Remastered, but I'm gonna assume all of the cards I need are gonna come back, and I'm gonna post that to. I'm gonna have it on Aether Hub where you can look at it if you want. If they don't put this card in, I'm gonna be absolutely upset. Scarab God. This card, a lot of people hate. I understand. I recognize. I wouldn't play it in Bolas, but I would play it in so many other decks. I just love this card. Like, it's a fucking Scarab God. It makes zombies. It's annoying as hell to get rid of. It's great. 5-mana 5/5 scry, exile things. It's awesome. It's just awesome. Okay, it's awesome. I'm sure this is. I'm sure this and this are the cards that people from my list do not want to see the most. If near Deadlands, this one I essentially have a stand-in for all the deserts. I like when lands have stuff going on about them, right? So we have, gosh, what were they? We have the castles, which don't really have any extra stuff here, but you know, we have the castles. It's a cool cycle. But with this, we have the deserts, and they just do more stuff with deserts, and I just think it's cool. That's pretty much it. Pretty much self-explanatory. This was a bonus video. I have a normal Magic the Gathering Arena video, even though it technically is still a wildcard day. You'll see what it is. But yeah, these are the cards I'm super excited for from Amonkhet. I do have a couple of cards that are cards I don't want to see, but that's between Amonkhet and Kaladesh. So I'm probably going to talk about Kaladesh at some point. We don't have any discussion at all about Kaladesh Remastered, but I suspect they'll bring it back at some point. And I'll talk about those cards at some point. But yeah, I would like to thank my lovely patrons, especially Zen, for the continued support. If you'd like to join them supporting the show, you'll find links to that down in the description below. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, go and tap that like button, add to the subscription to Mana Pool, cast a comment in the comment section down below, pass the turn of the video to some of your friends, and of course, until next time, all will be one.